Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are looking at week 7 in the NFL. Got play of props here in this video for you guys. Make sure to go ahead and like that video, subscribe to that page. Got plenty of NFL action coming out on the page every week for you guys. Also want you to head to thelines.com, use everything up on the site right now. We've got a lot of great content about all these plays, including these touchdown plays every week, negative correlation parlays, and the like. Nate, we had a pretty good week last week, I would say. 5-2 on the week. You gave a little bonus pick, so we did get an extra W in there with Trey McBride having some success for Arizona. We're going to look to keep it rolling here, up a pretty good amount. You are very nice on the season right now, 16-6. So I'd definitely be tailing Nate. I am, so I would go ahead and jump on the bandwagon. Let's see what you have in store for us this week, Nate.
Yeah, I'm going to buy the dip on Tyreek Hill coming out of the bye week. Over 56.5 yards is minus 115. I mean, it's kind of juiced to the over here, but an over 22.5 longest reception. I put a half unit on that as well, basically banking on Tyler Huntley being able to connect on some of these deep shots. I mean, this is not really based on statistics or anything. It's just based on like the fact that they've had a whole bye week now to get used to throwing to Tyreek Hill, who is unlike any human on the planet, certainly any football player, and Mike McDaniel to actually coach up Huntley as to how you get the ball out of your hands and put enough air under it to connect on these. I mean, if you watch that Tennessee game, it was a hard watch, Tyler Huntley's debut, especially if you needed something from Tyreek, because he goes for 2 clearly missed 70-plus yard touchdowns, like just wide freaking open. He, to be fair, the second one he only missed by, a foot? Like it was right in front of Cheetah. So, I mean, you could see the frustration there. More conservative game plan against New England, because why do you really need to pull out the stops in any way? He still got over this, though, right? I mean, 69 yards on 6 catches, 9 targets. Now we're at Indy, not a great secondary. I know some of them have pretty good numbers, like Womack's playing well, but I mean, this is a different challenge. This is unlike anybody they played yet. Anthony Richardson, it looks like, is going to be starting, which is a game flow impact in terms of shorter drives for the Colts, in terms of probably, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing in terms of how you look at the Dolphins offense. But I mean, he's going to be launching it downfield, incompletions, lengthening the game rather than Joe Flacco keeping that thing moving. And this is a nice, fast turf, Lucas Oil Stadium. In his career, Tyreek Hill, 9 games, 113.5 yards per game when playing in a dome. So good luck corralling that dude.
Makes sense. I mean, you're not going to have bad games every week for Tyreek Hill for the rest of the season. Obviously, everybody's impacted without Tua, but 56.5, like you're saying, and for sure the longest with Tyreek all the time, always liable to break one. So love the going to him in this moment when he's sort of the forgotten man right now, and this is a good moment to come back after the bye, like you said. So I'm going to get into my first pick, which is Geno Smith, over 24.5 pass completions. I would recommend getting a part of this game between Seattle and Atlanta on offense. There's going to be some overs. We got a massive total over 50. You've got the dome. You've got, Kirk Cousins back there as well. So there's going to be a good amount of gunslinging. And I start with both these teams being in the top 5 in play in sort of seconds per play, right? They're not really letting much time come off of that game clock. And they're just getting right up to the huddle. 2nd for Seattle, 4th for Atlanta. And that's going to be a big part of what we're going to see. There's going to be a lot of plays in this game. So I love Geno to get 25 pass completions against a team that is kind of built to do that. They're built to give up short completions. They play a zone and they just say, we'll give you short little nothing and then we'll tighten up and you won't get your third downs. You won't score in the red zone because we're just going to play a zone and sort of drop back a bit. So I love the fact that Atlanta's already given up 25 plus in their 3 of their last 4 games. The under went to Baker. He had 24 attempts in that game, kind of slowed down after he had all the touchdowns and they were actually running it out a little bit more at the end. Bunch of defensive touchdowns, weird game, but everything else still really good for this play from Atlanta's defense. Allowed the highest QB percentage, but they don't allow very high ADOT or any sort of yards per completion. 5th lowest yards per attempt, 6th lowest air yards per attempt. So like I said, they're giving up everything in front of them and not really allowing you to go over them and go deep. So the yards are probably fine for Geno and what'll be a back and forth game. But I think completions, when you've got a team that can't run the ball for Seattle, there's going to be a lot more pass attempts. It's just what it is. He's got the most completions, most attempts on the season because of that. A little bit skewed by Detroit where he had like 59 pass attempts or whatever. At the same time, still had that at least 40 a handful of times already this season. So with the pass attempts there, with the short yardage game available, the completions are my favorite play for him.
Yeah, I don't think you mentioned Atlanta second worst pressure rate, right? They do
All for that.
not get home ever. So I mean, yeah, you combine that with the fact that Seattle should be able to run the ball here. I mean, anybody should be able to run the ball, but they just haven't had any success. Like they were stubbornly trying to against San Fran, right? And only got back into that game when they were like, all right, let's go back to our pass rate over
Right.
expectation, our bread and butter, which is what they had been doing during the 3-0 start.
Yeah.
But a more capable offensive line, I think, can run on San Francisco. That's why I'm going Kareem Hunt over 13 and a half rush attempts. That's the more confident angle here. 1.5 units, please, on him to get 14 carries. And you can put a half unit on the yardage as well, which is 50 to 52 right now. Look, he is a workhorse at this moment. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like is going to be active, but Andy Reid said we'll see if he's going to play. I mean, the dude is not in a great place mentally, it seems like, to come right back out here in the biggest game, regular season game, and take a heavy workload. Whereas Kareem Hunt is like second life. Absolutely. I'm so happy to get back in Kansas City. I never thought I would play for them again. And he's given his all at every single opportunity. He had 38 opportunities in those last two games before the bye, right? He goes from 48% of the snaps to 65% and gets over this prop easily, even in 48% snaps, 14 carries in a negative game script against the Chargers, and then 27 when they got into positive against the Saints. Now, again, buying somebody out of the bye week. We got Andy Reid, 21-3, coming out of his bye. I don't expect the Chiefs to be trailing by much. I expect them to have lots of offensive success here against the Niners defense that is really dangerous in at the back end. Like Mahomes is still a threat, but like Kelsey going against Fred Warner, Juju Smith going against any of these corners, like who's winning their routes? Like Xavier Worthy is not taking the top off this Niners secondary. So I think it's going to be a pretty, methodical Chiefs offense here. Just kind of hand the ball to Kareem, like pick up 3 or 4. Let's ride the middle of this offensive line, which is so damn good. And we've seen people have success against the Niners since they lost Hargrave for the season. Jordan Elliott missed last week, right? 100 scrimmage yards to James Conner, 116 to Kyron Williams. So I think Kareem could definitely have a pretty good game here.
Yeah, I love the attempts for him. I mean, he's going to be that guy. I don't really know how Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to fit in, but I mean, the last time that we saw him playing football wasn't great, and I don't know why you'd go away from something that already looks like it's working with Kareem Hunt so well in what's going to continue to be a pretty run-heavy attack for KC. We've talked about it for a while. It's been a couple of years in the making of a slight transition from just air it out. Pat Mahomes might run for 30 yards randomly. You don't know. To he's sticking around in the pocket, and they're running a lot more short yardage stuff and happy to matriculate down the field. So I love Kareem Hunt moving forward as well. I'm going to go AJ Brown for my second pick here. I just feel like this. I mean, sometimes fantasy owners might find a little frustration in him like disappearing for random games, especially when you think he has a good matchup. But I can't get away from him going up against the Giants and Deonte Banks at this point. If you're a number one wide receiver on the outside and Banks is forced to guard you at this point, like I've been picking on the Giants for a while now, better than expected. But this dude at this point for Deonte Banks, just to give you a little bit of his numbers here, he does appear to be open on Sundays for Deonte Banks. He's basically been targeted in the top 15 most amount in the league, 14th most specifically, 63% completion percentage against him, and 14.7 yards per reception. So just run a nice 10 plus yard route. You'll probably find yourself open against Banks at this point in the Giants, sort of leaving him out on an island consistently, but all they can do is rush the passer, and that hasn't been enough to help him up to this point, as we know. And for Brown, I mean, he's only played twice this year, but all we've seen from him is getting 115 plus yards in the air, 116 and 119 in each game, 9.5 targets and 5.5 receptions in that time frame. Really nice ADOT, as you're always going to get about 19 plus from AJ Brown. And then the other thing that for the Giants and their defense, mostly just that they're just way better against the rush. They're 10th best in rush EPA, 20th against the pass. They are getting a really good pressure on the quarterback, but obviously we know Hurts is able to escape pressure super well, and that's when it's even more dangerous for AJ Brown at that point once you get them kind of scrambling. And with Neighbors back and a little bit more health on this Giants team, they have some guys that are banged up and questionable, including like Wan'Dale Robinson. But and even Singletary, which might not matter with Tracy now at this point. That offense looking a lot better in the last 3 weeks should at least give us like somewhat of a game between these division rivals.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Saquon. Like originally, I wanted to take Saquon Barkley overs, but they're so high because they know
Right.
the books know everybody wants that revenge angle, right? And maybe the Giants are extra aware of it. I mean, the strength of their defense is definitely on that line, right? Maybe they are able to keep Saquon in check. Maybe they overcommit resources because they don't want to be run over in that revenge angle, and then that opens things up for AJ. I a little concern about how the Giants really bracketed Jamar Chase in that last game and let T. Higgins go to work. So, I mean, maybe it's more like they let Devontae Smith go to work on Deontay Banks and they kind of shift the coverage that way. But look, A.J. Brown's, he's a big play waiting to happen. And the Eagles don't have anybody else really to make those big plays.
And you make a good point there for sure with like potentially the slot being a little bit more open. T. Higgins was working out of the slot a good amount in that game versus the G-men. At the same time, like it's not receptions, it's yards. I would actually not like the receptions as much for A.J. Brown as much as him to get like at least 20 to 30 yard receptions against Deontay Banks. And that's what I'm banking on here.
Right on, right on. All right, let's go back to London. Let's go back to targeting the Jaguars. Pop Demario Douglas over 47 and a half yards is pretty good odds. And that's because this is a Patriots offense that nobody's wanted any part of, but showed some signs there at Drake May's debut. And clearly, I mean, Douglas is going to be should be a popular play. I'm kind of surprised his prop is only 47. I'm surprised Evan Ingram's prop is only 47 in this game after like he was just eating against a really good Bears defense. But yeah, let's focus on the Pats here with Douglas going 6 for 92 in Drake May's debut. He's now drawn 9 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. In that span, he is a 28.5% first read rate. So he is the guy that the Patriots are drawing up any passing play for. 22.5% against 2 high safeties, which is what the Jags primarily play. He's run 77% of his routes out of the slot, which is kind of a rookie quarterback's best friend. Like it used to be back in the day, like, oh, rookies love the tight end. It's just now it's the different NFL, but it's the same philosophy, right? Is that they can only read the middle of the field. Like they can't get from side to side that much. So clearly Drake is going to be looking at him, and I mean he's been getting open, like excellent target separation, actually the 3rd best win rate against man coverage in the league. Darnell Savage, it looks like, is going to be able to play for the Jags, but I think he suffered a concussion in that last game, so that's not great. He's a safety. If he's not down there trying to cover Douglas, he's kind of a big bodied guy to be a slot corner. They have Jerry Jones, who's so far gotten a 54 PFF grade in his rookie season. And that's why, they're allowing the 4th most PPR points per target to the slot. So I definitely trust Douglas to keep getting about 50 yards here, if not having another big game in London.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I just going to continue to bank on quarterback, wide receiver success against this Jag squad. I don't know why you would think anything else. Caleb Williams, Hall of Famer last week in his like 6th start of the season against this team. So I'm going with Drake Maye. Nice little segue. I knew you were going to go Demario Douglas, but I was still happy when I still saw this at like 203. I thought this might even be like 10 yards lower, to be honest, but I was happy to take it up to like 210 for Drake Maye. And it's 203.5 passing yards. And it's going up too. I do think this will probably end closer to 209.5 before that game starts in foggy London town. But I mean, look, I don't have more than 1 game's worth of stats to go up with Drake Maye, but throwing the ball 33 times against a Houston Texans defense that just annihilates quarterbacks, and you come into this game, there's been conversation, like, and I'm talking about me with people talking about football when I say there's been conversation, but I think it's a legitimate one, which was Jacoby Brissett almost as much at fault for how bad that offensive line was weeks 1 through 5 as maybe the offensive line? I mean, there's not a lot of talent. It got riddled with injuries. At the same time, like he didn't do himself any favors. He never left the pocket. He was not willing to really scramble very much. And he didn't do much when he got outside the pocket. He kept that A dot low. And Drake Maye comes in, raises that A dot right away from what it was with Jacoby Brissett at about like 6.5, 7 yards for multiple games. And Drake Maye comes in right away and is like, let me get this thing closer to 10, which is because he had a little bit more time and because he bought himself a little bit more time. And that's just what I'm reading into there. And then obviously Jacksonville's defense, right? 29th in pass yards, 32nd in pass EPA. They've been hanging their hat on the ability to get to the quarterback you mentioned a couple guys that might not play in this game or at least banged up on the defensive line as well. I think that's going to continue to be a problem for them. And this Pats O-line will continue to get better. You're probably looking at another 30 to 35 pass attempts from Drake Maye, just based on game script and the fact that, even if the defense plays well for New England, their run game right now is just not likely to be as good against this Jags defense that we know about. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to take the Rook.
Yeah, because Ramondre Stevenson is not practicing. So yeah, that's not going to help the run game. I mean, I think the O-line is as bad as we thought. Like, I'm not saying it's some sort of smoke and mirrors thing with Jacoby Brissett, but Drake Maye is more mobile. He will get more pass attempts off, and it won't look as bad as when Will Anderson was just living in the backfield last week, right? I mean, that was the mother of all mismatches. That's why there was talk, and by that I mean public radio talk in the Boston area about why are you throwing this kid in against Houston and you didn't play him against Miami.
Right.
It didn't make much sense, and it was an uphill battle, but he performed pretty well considering that. I mean, it was the defense that just got run over. So if that happens again, we should have good luck with both these props.
Yeah, 100%. Nice little stack there in DFS if you're looking for it. But that's all the time we have for you here in this one. Definitely want to make sure to continue to follow along, coming back every week with these player props for the NFL. Also got the NBA starting up real soon. The kids' bread and butter there. We'll be bringing you guys player props every weekday for that season as well. So until we see y'all next, happy betting.